the NFL draft's a great time. The NFL draft is the greatest time of the year. It's my favorite time of the year, and I look forward to it every single year. Sometimes I go like a little too buck wild with it. Like if you've ever read my blog post before, and you can check out this one, Week 6 quarterback prospect rankings. If you've ever read one of my blog posts before, they can get a little long-winded, especially when we get into the mock draft period. I think we'll have a mock draft some point within the next couple weeks. I think that's fair. I mean, we're getting to the midway point of the college football season. I think that's usually a fair time to do a mock draft, or maybe we'll do it around the 1st of November or something like that. I'll get with the team. We'll discuss that. We'll get around to that and everything else. But the draft's fun, and looking at the quarterback position is always the most fun because the quarterback position defines the draft. If the quarterback position is bad, then the rest of the draft is viewed as bad. The 2013 draft is a prime example of that. I know Geno Smith's still kicking in the NFL, but that year, with one quarterback going in the first round, that made everybody change their entire tune about the draft. The 2021 NFL draft? No, 2022 NFL draft. Kenny Pickett getting drafted 20th. The next quarterback get drafted in the 3rd round. That's not great for the draft class, especially when you look at where everybody is currently standing in that draft class in regards to quarterback position. Quarterback position drives the draft. So every single week, there's going to be new things that change for each single quarterback that can adjust their draft stock tremendously in regards to negatively or positively. And this weekend, I don't really know if we could sit here and go like, yes, this negatively affected someone or this positively affected somebody. I think the main one that you're going to want to look at is the same one we looked at in-depthly last week, which is Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe in Alabama just lost to freaking Vanderbilt. I don't know if there's ever been a quarterback prospect viewed as highly as Jalen Milroe right now that has ever lost to Vanderbilt. I don't know if that's possible. I don't know if there's a single player in the history of college football that has ever lost to Vanderbilt and won a Heisman Trophy. Which last week, we sat around after Jalen Milroe's performance against Georgia, where he had 370-plus yards passing and over 115 yards rushing. I think he had 117 total rushing yards in that game. And we said on the show that Jalen Milroe had placed one hand on the Heisman Trophy. And I think a lot of people out there would agree with me. After that game, like we're not expecting to see a lot of performances better than that. And yes, Ashton Genty had the numbers, and Travis Hunter, pound for pound, is probably the best player in college football. But the Heisman Trophy is very much a quarterback award. Much like the MVP in the NFL. It's very much a quarterback award, a quarterback-driven award. So Jalen Milroe having those types of numbers and winning against Georgia, of all teams, and being up 28-0 that early in the game, yes, I didn't really think we were going to see another performance like that the rest of the year. But then the following week, we see him lose to Vanderbilt. It's kind of like Melvin Gordon in college football. Remember when he broke the single-game rushing record against Nebraska? LaDainian Tomlinson set it against UTEP while he was at TCU. It was like a record that lasted for how many years? 15 years? Something like that? And you want to know what happened? The very next week, Samaje Perine broke it against Kansas. The rest of that a record that lasted for around 15 years was broken in a week. Melvin Gordon held the record for one singular week. Jalen Milroe had the Heisman Trophy in his hands for one singular week, and now the Heisman Trophy race is wide-ass open again. And right now, you'd be hard-pressed to find anybody that says anybody other than Ashton Genty is the favorite for the Heisman Trophy. And this game against Vanderbilt, I don't think Jalen Milroe necessarily played bad. I don't think he played that bad, but he didn't play great either. I mean, statistically, he went 18 for 24. He had 310 yards passing. He did throw an interception on the first drive of the game that happened to go for a pick six, which is not ideal. And that play was just jacked up all around from Alabama. Like, the snap was high and fast, and then when he let go of the ball, Ryan Williams slipped on his route. Like, it was just everything that could have gone wrong went wrong in that play, and the ball shot up in the air after the defender from guarding Williams broke it up. Shot up in the air, other defender came in and picked it off, and housed it the other direction. Up 13-0 like that because they missed the extra point because it's Vanderbilt. They missed the extra point, 13-0, boom. Alabama is now in danger zone. Absolute danger zone. So that was not the greatest way to start the game. Jalen Milroe also only had 10 yards rushing, which is just weird to think about. Like against Georgia, he had 117 rushing yards. And against Vanderbilt, he had 10. I did not foresee that coming. I did not foresee that. I do apologize to those out there, but yeah, I'm sorry about that. In this game, Jalen Milroe had a couple nice little shots down the field. He kind of got some receivers lit up throughout the game, which is not necessarily something you love to see. And I'm sure the receivers were kind of like, let their presence known that, hey, that hurt. But I give credit to the receivers as well for holding on to the ball. Like, that's what you want to see. Like, yes, it's cool to see the seam shots from Jalen Miller. Like, he had one to Dupree early in the game. Took a nice little shot after the 46-yard. Not Dupree. Cuevas. Sorry. Not Dupree. Cuevas. 17-yard gain. Get him down closer to the goal line. And, yeah, took an absolute missile. And then Kobe Pretense, later in the game, same thing, or not same thing in regards to route. Ran more of like a crossing route type thing. Caught the ball. Nice little shot from Milroe, but got popped right after it. But both times, credit to the receivers, both of them held onto the ball. That's what you want to see. You want to see that kind of stuff. And, yeah, that's what you want to see. And then you look at like some plays to Robbie Outs from Alabama. He had a nice little 8-yard pass to him, broke around the defender, threw a nice calm pass around him. We had a deep ball to Ryan Williams, which Ryan Williams, I don't know if I've seen a receiver that young have that much awareness and body control. I don't know if I've ever seen it. Like the big play last week against Georgia, where he caught down the sideline, did the 360, scored a touchdown. He did a similar-ish thing against Vanderbilt this week. Like, I don't understand how he does it. At 17 years old. Like, born in 2007. I don't like that. That makes me really sad. That makes me really, really sad. Like, I have a cousin right now who is 17 years old. I was at the hospital when she was born. I remember being there. My dad and I were going to go to Kansas Speedway for a NASCAR race. So when we were at the hospital for my cousin to be born. I remember that. And this kid, and I can say kid, because I remember what I was doing back when he was born, back in 2007. So I could say kid. I don't understand how it's possible. I really, I just don't know. I just don't know. But, yeah, I can't sit here and say, like, Jalen Milroe had a bad game. I did see some reports that some former players thought he gave up in the game, which I think that's just a little harsh. That's a little harsh. I just think Alabama was not mentally prepared for this game in the slightest. You saw that at the end of the game when I think it was Malachi Moore started throwing his mouth guard and stuff after the game. I don't think they were prepared for this game whatsoever. I could be wrong. I'm not in the locker room, obviously, but this was a game that they took for granted. They vastly took this game for granted. So I don't know if I could sit here and say Jalen Milroe gave up in this game, but he didn't play the same or anywhere close to what we saw against Georgia whatever week last week was, week 5. So it's a little bit of a drop-off. So now the Heisman Trophy race is back and wide open, and there's one quarterback, maybe two, that you look at, and I will give you a little way one of them right now. Dylan Gabriel is going to be one of them. He's not mentioned in this list, but he's a quarterback that I'm sure some people out there would go like, oh, he's going to be one of the people talking about the Heisman. The other quarterback that will be in the Heisman race, we will talk about here in a little bit. But let's go over the full top 10 rankings. And first, we'll go over the honorable mentions, I guess. So honorable mentions in the top 10 rankings read as follows. We got Cade Klubnik. This is in alphabetical order by last name. So this is not like, this would be number 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. This is not that. This is just an alphabetical order by last name. Cade Klubnik, this weekend against Florida State, he had 2 passing touchdowns, also had 62 yards on the ground in a 29-13 win. 14 touchdowns, 2 picks on the season. He's got good numbers. He's run the ball well as well. Number 2, I guess. I said it's not in numerical order, but alphabetical order. He still is number 2 on the list. Kyle McCord, 40 for 63. 63 pass attempts, 3 touchdowns, 1 pick. Also had 22 yards on the ground at UNLV. 44-41 win. Syracuse is my sim team in NCAA football 25. So I got a lot of love for Syracuse, though in my sim, I benched Kyle McCord. Sorry. It was just, he just didn't fit our offense. So I do apologize for that. But on the season, 17 touchdowns. He does have 6 interceptions on the season, but he's had a really solid year. And there's some people out there, like Ohio State fans, that are like, is Kyle McCord worse than Will Howard, or is Will Howard better than Kyle McCord? And I would just sit here and say they offer 2 completely different skill sets. They just offer 2 different things. Kyle McCord is more of your drop back passer. Will Howard is you can kind of do multiple things with him in regards to running the ball, which Kyle McCord can do. I'm not sitting here and saying Kyle McCord can't run. He just doesn't have the same effectiveness running the ball as Will Howard. We'll talk about him in a little bit. The next one on this list is Miller Moss. We talked about him a little bit ago. He had the 2 interceptions against Minnesota. USC dropped from 11 to outside of the rankings this weekend in a 24-17 loss. Curtis Rourke from Indiana, 41-24 win against Northwestern. 25 for 33, 380 yards, 3 touchdowns. Curtis Rourke is absolutely cooking. Transfer from Ohio. Really liked him at Ohio. And now at Indiana, they're just cooking on all sorts of levels. They are such a solid football team. And obviously it's Indiana. So I want to I want to be as hesitant as possible, but I'm also excited because Indiana, it's just weird. They're the 18th ranked team in the nation right now, and they're playing lights out on the opposite side of the ball. Curtis Rourke threw his 2 interceptions last week against Maryland. Other than that, he's been very smart with the football in his hands. Right now, he has 14 touchdowns and 14 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns to his name this year. I'm liking what I'm seeing from him. And the last person on here, I didn't know if we'd see him again. I didn't know if we'd see him the rest of the year, but Connor Wegman from Texas A&M. He didn't throw a passing touchdown. He didn't rush a touchdown in either, but he played solid. And Texas A&M beat the absolute piss out of Missouri. I'm not sitting here and saying Connor Wegman is now a first-round quarterback again like everybody was brandishing him at the start of the season, but Connor Wegman in this game, 18 for 22, 276 yards, no turnovers, which is key because after that Notre Dame game, people looked at him completely different. There were some people still trying to hold on to him being that first-round guy that everybody thought because he had the potential. We saw good things from him last year before he left the season with a foot injury. There were a lot of good things to build off for this year, but that first game against Notre Dame, good Lord. It was like the Sam Darnold seeing ghosts game. It was brutal. He had a good game the next week against McNeese State, had a shoulder injury the past couple weeks, but against Missouri, looked good. Texas A&M, beat the absolute piss out of Missouri, 41-10. That game was never close. We had one of the greatest punts of all time in that game as well. I'm just happy for Connor Wegman to be back in amongst the honorable mention section, even though he's not in the top 10. Number 10, though, he kept his spot from last week. Riley Leonard, remember he had the solid game against Louisville the previous week. I'm intrigued to see how he does against Stanford. It's at home. They're big favorites. I think they were, 22-point favorites in this game or something like that. Notre Dame's a very up-and-down team, but they're starting to get things figured out in the passing game. Riley Leonard still definitely got some room to grow in regards to becoming a more well-rounded passer, but that's starting to click. That's starting to click. One thing at Duke for Riley Leonard, Riley Leonard's always had the arm talent, but refining that deep ball was something that he definitely needed to work on. I don't know if you remember this, but when he was at Duke, there were times they needed to launch it towards the end zone. They would put Blevin in, their backup quarterback. They would throw in their backup to throw the deep ball towards the end zone. They just needed a Hail Mary. I don't know if you remember that or not, but that's something Riley Leonard needs. His arm strength, in regards to the intermediate pass, he can zip the ball through any window, but that deep ball just, I don't know what it was. It never had any consistent behind it at all. Any consistency. We saw him throw a passing touchdown for the first time this season a couple weeks ago. He needs to still develop that, but he's got all the tools you look for in becoming a very good quarterback at the next level. He's got the athletic ability, he's got the size, he's got the toughness for sure, but we just need to see him fully develop. So maybe I'm a little bit overzealous with Riley Leonard. Maybe I shouldn't have him in the top 10. Maybe you don't think he should be a top 10 quarterback, and I do apologize for that if you don't think that, but I'm willing to bet on Riley Leonard because I like some of the traits he has. It's just time for him to develop, and we'll see how he does against Stanford this weekend. Number 9, we have Will Howard in here. We brought him up with Kyle McCord, with Ohio State fans talking about who's better between Kyle McCord and Will Howard. If you look at the passing numbers, it is Kyle McCord. You look at the game last week he threw the ball 63 freaking times. He has more passing touchdowns than Will Howard right now. He has more passing yards than Will Howard right now. There's some numbers you can look at and go yes, Kyle McCord is better than Will Howard, but I do think Will Howard is a little bit smarter with the football in his hands. Kyle McCord can get a little overzealous at times. What was the thing? What was the thing? Was it week 2 or something where Kyle McCord was this too easy, this shit too easy or something like that? That's what you want to see. You want to see your quarterback being pumped up like that. That's what you want to see. And you also love seeing your quarterback trying to run over people, but coach's staff don't really like that. Will Howard, more often than not, is going to try and run over somebody than trying to slide or avoid contact or something like that. We'll talk about another quarterback here in a little bit who did the same thing this weekend. But we talked about it with the Iowa game. Ohio State definitely kicked in the gear the second half. Will Howard, in the first drive of the game, marched down the field, scored a touchdown, fit a ball through a really tight window to, who's the receiver he threw it to? Bryson Rodgers. Really tight window. If Iowa was more prepared for the play, maybe Iowa does a better job at breaking up the pass. And not only breaking up the pass, maybe they pick it off and maybe they go the other direction for 6. Maybe all that stuff takes place, but it was a very tight window to fit the ball through, and he got it in for a first down. He then found Emeka Egbuka for a touchdown pass later in the drive, but that rest of that first half was just weird. It was just weird. We talk about the fumble that they had with Jeremiah Smith getting stripped by Jay Higgins. We talk about them failing to go for it on 4th down, or failing to convert on 4th down. Will Howard gets stuffed at the line of scrimmage. Then Will Howard threw an interception, which I don't think was a bad throw from Will Howard. I think the pressure affected the throw because Emeka Egbuka did have space between Sebastian Castro and the sideline. I think if Will Howard had a clean pocket and didn't get hit right as he throws it, I do think he can float it into the pocket to Emeka Egbuka. But Lord knows, ifs, buts, and maybes, right? And it doesn't matter because Sebastian Castro came down with the ball. He also had a passing touchdown with Jeremiah Smith having a one-handed catch in there. I thought Will Howard was a very efficient player in this game against Iowa. And Iowa's got a historically good defense. They may not be the same Iowa defense that we've seen in previous years. They're more prone to the deep ball than they have been in previous years. But still, I thought Will Howard played well. Will Howard had more total touchdowns in this game than he did incompletions in this game. I thought he played well. And I think this season, it's kind of weird to view Will Howard because what definitely doesn't help him in regards to the general audience is the amount of talent Ohio State has around them. Because you look at Emeka Egbuka, Jeremiah Smith, then the running backs, Travion Henderson, Judkins. So you got good offensive linemen as well. So it's more, people look at Will Howard at the negative side of things when he throws the football. If he does anything bad, it's because he's bad. But if he does anything good, some people will view it as, I'm not saying everybody, but there'll be some people that view it as, oh, it's because of the weapons around him. And Ohio State's got a vast group of weapons. I think Will Howard's a fine quarterback. I think at number 9, he's perfectly fine sitting here. But he's going to keep teetering in and out of the top 10 the rest of the season. I think there's a few quarterbacks within those last 7. Maybe there's 10 quarterbacks maybe that you could talk about being within that 9-10 honorable mention section. But Will Howard, after this past weekend's performance, I would say is the best out of those guys. And number 9, we have Jackson Dart. I honestly, going into this game, after watching the Kentucky game and watching Ole Miss those first 4 weeks of the season, I know they didn't beat a bunch of world beaters or anything, but they did play Wake Forest, and there's not a horrific team or absolute embarrassment of a college football program. But after watching them those first 4 weeks, I was like, oh, Ole Miss will beat the brakes out of anybody. And even though Kentucky and South Carolina aren't amazing teams, they're not bad teams. I just thought that they would still, not that they're bad teams, sorry, I misspoke. Not that they're bad teams, I just thought Ole Miss, the way they were cooking on the opposite side of the ball, I thought they would still be able to put up a bunch of yards, bunch of numbers. I thought they would be able to do all that. Jackson Dart, through those first 4 games, averaged 388.5 yards a game. 3 times he threw for over 375 yards or something like that. Or 4 times. Each of the first 4 games he threw for over 375 yards. Twice he threw for 377. He had a blistering start to the season. These past couple weeks, he has 1 passing touchdown these past 2 weeks. Sure, he doesn't have an interception to his name through these past 2 weeks, but he has no passing touchdowns, no rushing touchdowns, no interceptions, not as efficient with the ball. But this game against South Carolina, they were in his face a lot. And he still was able to deliver some strikes down the field. You look at some balls that he had down the sideline. I can think of 2 off the top of my head. He had one to Trey Harris, who he got hit right as he threw the ball, floated it right in there. Trey Harris, I think, got it down to the 4-yard line or something like that. And there's another one where he got his feet taken out from under, at least his right foot. He got the D lineman dove down and pulled his right foot back right as he right when he let go of the football, and still managed to get to the receiver for a nice little gain in there. And he had good moments throughout this game. It might not have been his most efficient game ever, but he had moments. He ran the ball well. I think this was the season high in rushing yards. I could be wrong with that. He had 44 yards rushing. But we talked about Will Howard trying to run over someone, Jackson Dart trying to run over a South Carolina defender late in the game is not really something that a lot of coaches like. Like I said, though, teammates will love that. Everybody wants to see the quarterback act, quote-unquote, act like a football player and try to run over somebody. But that's not what you want. Next time, just slide. Just slide, man. Protect yourself. Wait till another day. You are insanely vital to this offense. The success of this offense, Jackson Dart, your ability as a thrower and as a runner are paramount. And a lot of these throws in this game, like I said before, they had a hand in his face every single time. Or if he didn't have a hand in his face, then he was just getting popped in the chest. Like, he had a rough game in regards to not being hit, but I give that more of a credit to South Carolina. But he still stood tall in the pocket, which is what you want to see from your quarterbacks. You want to see them not be afraid to take the contact. You want to see them playing through the contact, not engaging in the contact, but standing tall in the pocket and delivering down the field, up the seam, down the sideline, wherever, checking it down. You just want to see them not be afraid of contact. Again, not engaging in said contact, but not afraid to take a hit here and there. And I think Jackson Dart did that very well in this game. And Ole Miss came on the better side of this game. I did think it was funny, though. Ole Miss's last drive of the game, up 27-3. They're going for it on 4th and 11, and Jackson Dart just launched it towards the end zone. You're going for it on 4th and 11, up 27-3. I love the shithousery, but Jackson Dart should not have been in at that point. With how many hits he was taking in this game, Jackson Dart he just shouldn't have been in. He shouldn't have been in. Get his ass to the sideline. Get ready for next week because we got this game against LSU, which is going to be freaking awesome. 100 points combined between these two teams. 150 points combined. 1,500 yards total offense in this game combined. It's going to be fun. And number 7 is Garrett Nussmeier. We talked about the game last week that he had against South Alabama. Had some, not great interceptions in this game, but there's some throws that he made in the game up the seam that not a lot of quarterbacks can make. He's got, again, what we call arm arrogance, and that showed throughout the game last week in this game against Jackson Dart. I'm very much looking forward to. I think it'll be a very fun game. Nice little exercise between the two quarterbacks, and it's going to be fun. It is going to be fun. And then the next quarterback on this list is, of course, Drew Aller. We talk about arm arrogance. Much like Garrett Nussmeier, Drew Aller has that in bunches. This game against UCLA, against the worst passing defense of the Big Ten, or at least one of the worst passing defenses of the Big Ten, if I got that factually wrong. Because I think they are statistically the worst passing defense of the Big Ten, but if I'm wrong, then just one of them. They're one of the bottom 3 passing defenses of the Big Ten. UCLA is not a very good football team. That's the long and short of it. And yes, they have played a really rough start to the season. I think four of their first 5 games against ranked teams or something like that. Like it's not been an easy road for them. But Penn State in this game, Nick Singleton did not play, so we'll have to wait and see if he bounces back and plays against USC this week. That's a game time decision for them, which will be massive for that game. But Drew Aller, in a game against a team with a bad passing defense, you want to see them step up. Like, when you're playing a bad team, you want to bury them. You want to see how you do against a bad team. Like, if you beat a bad team, then yes, that's one thing, you beat them, but no one's going to be convinced about it. Everybody's still going to have some question marks about it. But if you play a bad team, and you play well against a bad team, or good, or great against a bad team, then people look at it like, okay, you took care of business. Don't play with your food type of thing. And Drew Aller didn't play with his food in this game. Yes, he didn't need to do a ton in this game, but he did get a rushing touchdown, 1-yard quarterback sneak. Drew Aller is 6'5", 250, 60 pounds. Like, if you're within the 1-yard line, 1 to 2 yard line of either the first down marker or the end zone, call your own number, man. You're going to get it every single friggin' time. You're too damn big not to. And when he's in the open field, Drew Aller can make some plays running the football. We didn't see it that much in this game, but because he was throwing the ball really well. He had 237 yards passing. He had 7 incompletions in this game. He had some really nice seam shots to Liam Clifford. Like, Liam Clifford and him were on smoke this entire game. Like, if you remember the Kent State game, I think it was the Kent State game. It was either Kent State or Bowling Green. I don't remember which one. Where Tyler Warren, the tight end, him and Drew Aller were in sync a lot. And him and Tyler Warren connected in this game as well. But Liam Clifford, some deep balls that Drew Aller threw to him, like the seam routes. He threw 2 beautiful seam routes, beautifully timed seam routes, like just effortless throws. Effortless. And then he launched a bomb to Liam Clifford down the middle of the field, throwing it from, I think, the 5 to 6 yard line. I got to see the exact numbers here because I wrote it down. Because it was just an effortless throw. He threw it from the Penn State 5 to 6 yard line to the UCLA 46 with a flick of the wrist. I implore you to go and watch that throw because it is ridiculous. And it wasn't just that. That throw's like the money shot. Like, you look at the combine, what's the one play everybody stands up for? It's the quarterback that just throws the absolute piss out of the ball and launches it down the field, and the receiver runs over it, under it, and ends up in the end zone. Like, that's the thing that everybody loves to see. You saw that with Anthony Richardson. You saw it with Joe Milton last year. You saw Josh Allen. Like, those types of throws get people standing up. But he did so many other good things in this game. We talk about the seam shots that he had to Liam Clifford. He had a nice little, around the defender, lower arm angle type throw to the running back as well. I think it was to Katron Allen. I could be wrong. I don't remember which running back it was. It was one of them. But just a nice, efficient game from Aller. Nice, efficient game. He put together some really nice long drives in this game, and that's what you want to see. And he continues to develop. He's looking better and better as each game goes on. This game against USC will be very interesting because USC's defense, again, is a lot better. Not that that's really saying a lot, but it's a lot better than what it has been in previous years. Then we got number 5 on this list is Quinn Ewers. Don't know if he's going to play this weekend. I would hope so because, like we brought up earlier in the show, Quinn Ewers has missed significant time over the past 3 seasons at Texas. That's not great. You want to see your quarterback on the field, especially for these NFL teams. Are going to be investing a lot in Quinn Ewers. I would imagine at this point in time is going to be a relatively high draft pick. At this point in time, that's what I would imagine anyways. I'm not saying whether I agree or disagree with that, but that's just how it feels at this point. If he can't stay healthy, the chance of that happening are going to diminish each week. Like, it's just not going to happen. So we'll see if he plays against Oklahoma. We can't afford to see him get injured again. There's too many injuries stacking on top of each other. It's not great. Because remember, the best ability is availability. I know as the old saying goes, yada, yada, yada. Number 4 on this list is Carson Beck. Didn't need to do a whole lot in this game against Auburn. Really didn't need to do a whole lot. There were not even really any throws that you could look at and go like, those were amazing throws from Carson Beck. He had some good throws in this game. They had a confusing throw earlier in the game. He hit Dominic Lovett, from 11 yards out. I have no idea if he was trying to throw to Dylan Bell or Dominic Lovett because Bell had the ball go right through his hands. But thankfully, Lovett was right there and caught the ball, took it in the end zone. So I don't know who he was trying to throw to. I'm sure Beck would love to sit there and say, yeah, I was throwing to Lovett. But if he was throwing to Bell, then that's not great because he overthrew him. But you know what? You'll take the touchdown regardless. He had a nice little 27-yard pass down the near sideline to Colby Young. Like, he had some good throws. He had some solid throws in here. He showed off some nice pocket awareness to throw a 25-yard pass to London Humphreys later on in the fourth quarter. But it was just a really simple game from Beck, and that's what you kind of wanted to see after the game against Alabama and how hectic it was. Like, you remember his first half last week where it was just all over the place in all the negative directions. Like, everything felt like it was just stacking on top of each other. In that game against Alabama, he had 4 turnovers. He had 3 interceptions and a fumble, and he also had a safety in the game with an intentional grounding call in the end zone. Like, I know he played better as the game went on. You want to see how your quarterback responds to negative plays or responds to adversity and stuff like that. But when the negative plays are stacking so much, you just want to see him play calm, normal, efficient, taking what the defense gives him. If the defense giving you a nice 10, 15, 20-yard play, then take it. But if they're not giving you that, don't be afraid to check it down. And I think that was a prime example of what this game against Auburn was. It was just an easy game. Long and short of it, was just a very easy game for Georgia. They won 31-13. They're playing Mississippi State this weekend, who have one of the worst passing defenses in the SEC. I would love to see Beck launch the shit out of the ball. I know that's not what they're not. I know that's not what they're going to do. Because that's not the way Georgia plays football. But I would love to see Beck continue to stack solid performances. So, yeah, I have him at number 4 on this list. Number 3, we have Jalen Milroe. We've already talked about him with the game against Vanderbilt. Again, I don't think he played bad. I don't necessarily think he lit the world alight. I definitely think he took one hand off the Heisman Trophy. We'll have to see how that affects him the rest of the year. But, yeah, I still think he's one of the top quarterbacks in this year's draft. I still think he is. He has a very good arm. He still has that very good deep ball. The intermediate balls are still coming together. He's obviously a very big threat running the ball. Obviously didn't show it that much this weekend against Vanderbilt. But this weekend against South Carolina, I expect them to come out with their ass on fire, some heat under their ass, head on fire, whatever you want to call it, and put together a very solid performance. So I have him still at number 3. I wouldn't be shocked if some people out there lowered him down a little bit. I wouldn't be offended by that. I just don't think, looking at the quarterback performances from this past weekend, I don't know if I can really sit here and go like, Carson Beck played definitively better than Jalen Milroe this week. I don't know if I could sit here and say that, especially from what I remember from last weekend. I can't sit here and go Drew Aller played significantly better than Jalen Milroe. I can't sit here and say Jackson Dart did that. I can't sit here and say Will Howard did. So based off this past weekend, I can't sit here and go like he should be diminished because Alabama lost to Vanderbilt. It's an insane resume blemish, but I don't think I can lower him just based off this week, especially with how the other quarterbacks played, how good he played the previous week. I know it's a week-to-week thing, But that Georgia performance still resonates in my head. And number 2, well, I guess you know who the top 2 are. It's Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. You know who the top 2 are. Shedeur Sanders did not play this weekend, but that being said, I did lower him down to 2. Cameron Ward is the new number 1 quarterback in the quote-unquote draft quote-unquote expert week 6 quarterback prospect rankings, with Miami coming away with an impressive come-from-behind win against Cal. Mess of a game. Absolute mess of a game. We knew it was going to be a messy game because Cal's passing defense, Cal's defense in general, is very solid. And traveling from Miami to Berkeley is not necessarily the easiest travel in the world. Nice little conference rivalry game between Miami and Cal. Nice little rivalry game there. But Cameron Ward in this game, 2 passing touchdowns, did have an interception in the game. And it was a bad interception. Like, if I was to sit here and ask you what the first rule of quarterbacking was, what would you say it is? Like, just say it to yourself. I'll still talk because, like, I don't want it just to be dead silent here. But to me, the first rule of quarterbacking is don't throw it across your body, especially when you're rolling out. Do not roll out to your right and try to throw it back to the left. That is a stupid idea, and 95 to 99% of the time, it is going to backfire. And in those types of situations, when you're rolling out to the left, or rolling out to the right, the entire team shifted to the right. So that means that if you throw it back to the left and someone picks it off, there's a 99 to 100% chance they're going to return that back for a touchdown. And that's exactly what happened here. Like, Cameron Ward threw it back across his body, and the Cal defender pretty much caught it like a punt and just went the other way and housed it. Like, it was one of the easiest pick sixes he'll ever have in his entire life. But apart from the interception, what I really like about Cameron Ward is how calm he is. How calm he is in the pocket. Like, he had a 24-yard rushing touchdown in this game, and I don't even think he got out of first gear. Like, he basically just jogged in. Like, it was just he was such an easy quarterback draw, not quarterback draw. He was back to pass, and he just decided to run the ball. But he's so calm. And that's what you want to see from your quarterback. Yes, he's so calm, and yes, he had the interception. Yes, the interception was not great. He tried to do a little too much, and that's coming from his little bit of a Washington State days, where he tried to do a little bit too much at times and trying to turn the ball over. The consistency thing was a big thing for Cameron Ward going into the season. Apart from that, you had a lot of consistency in this game. You had a lot of it. Like, he had himself a very, very, very nice game, and that's what you want to see. Like, he had a nice hole shot to Samuel Brown for 21 yards down the far sideline. Like, the camera guy was even confused. The flight of the ball made no sense. I would recommend you guys go and watch that play because that play made absolutely no sense in regards to how maybe it was just because of how the camera was moving, but the ball didn't seem like it was going to land exactly where it landed. Then we had Cameron Ward hitting a nice little backside RPO to Isaiah Horton for 18 yards. That was nice to see. We had him and Xavier Restrepo for 14 yards. Cameron Ward and Xavier Restrepo have a very nice chemistry right now. Restrepo's kind of his get out of jail free card. Restrepo's just Mr. Consistency. And against, who did they play last week? I'm completely blanking who they played last week. Who did they play last week? Virginia Tech. In the game against Virginia Tech, you saw a couple interceptions in that game with him trying to force the ball to Xavier Restrepo. Both interceptions, ironically, were him trying to throw to Xavier Restrepo. Like, he's the guy that he looks to in trouble. And I understand why. Like, Xavier Restrepo is a very safe pair of hands. Xavier Restrepo looks very fluid when he runs routes. Like, he's a very easy receiver to throw the ball to. But sometimes he kind of forces the issue. Sometimes, but hey, every quarterback has a receiver they sometimes force the ball to. It happens to everybody. I'm not sitting here and saying Cameron Ward's an anomaly for forcing a ball to a wide receiver that he likes. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that in the frickin' slightest. Then we had him hitting Jacoby George. Cameron Ward just overall had a very good game. He had a very good game. And especially when you're down like that and having an interception like he did, Elijah Lofton up the seam for 24 yards. Like, he had a great game. He had a very efficient game. He had a very safe game after the interception. He grew with the game. Like, in the game, Cal was freaking up, 38-10, 35-10, 33-10, whatever the hell the score was? 35-10? Sorry, I bounced a little all over the place with that. I was trying to find the exact score that they were up. But on the road, against an ACC opponent, which is still insane for me to think about, after throwing an interception like he did and going the other way for a touchdown, that could crush a lot of people. But Cameron Ward grew with that. We talk about the thing with Carson Beck, having the multiple turnovers and the safety in that game. How do you come back from that? And Georgia took the lead. They were up, 34-33 late in that game? He threw an interception last drive of the game, but still, you liked that he grew into the game rather than shrinking. Cameron Ward not only grew with the game, he got better and better as the game went on. He's so comfortable. Like, you could see him roll out to the right and look back, check where the sideline is, and throw it across, like, down the field for a first down or something. He's so aware of everything in his surroundings, so calm in the pocket. He's got a nice little sauce to him as well. He's effective running the ball. You don't think of him as a runner, but he's very effective when he decides to actually run the football. Like, he might not be considered said in the same breath as Jalen Milroe in regards to being an athlete, but he can run the ball with ease. He's such an effortless thrower as well. He can hit all the seam shots. He can get every single throw on the field. And in this game against Cal, with the interception involved, I still think he did enough in this game to warrant being QB1 in this draft class based off what we saw from this past weekend. And maybe that's a little mean to Shedeur Sanders because he didn't play, and Shedeur Sanders hasn't really done anything to be demoted in these rankings apart from the Nebraska game, which that's just a weird overall game on the field and off the field. It's just a very weird week for Shedeur Sanders in Colorado. But apart from that, he hasn't really done a lot to warrant getting dropped down, but I just think Cameron Ward's playing awesome right now. And I think if we're looking at the quarterbacks with the Heisman, and it's insane to think about based off last week, but Cameron Ward's playing so consistently that with his 20 touchdowns, he leads the nation in passing yards. Has 20 passing touchdowns as well. Miami being undefeated. If Miami finishes the regular season undefeated, which is very likely, they have some games that they could slip up in. I wouldn't be shocked if they did. And Miami, I think, has a bye this week, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they're on a bye this week. But if they finish the regular season undefeated, and Cameron Ward continues playing like he has and playing as consistently, doesn't force the issue a little bit, then he's the quarterback we're looking at as the Heisman favorite, not Jalen Milroe, even based off what we saw last week against Georgia, which is crazy to think about. But that's where we're sitting at right now based off our Week 6 quarterback prospect rankings for the 2025 NFL Draft.